Okay, today I want to talk about the Model 3, how it compares to the Model S since Tesla released, they put on the website the comparison of the Model 3 and the Model S. So I want to kind of go over that, and I want to compare the Model 3 with the Bolt a little bit, since that's kind of a hot topic comparing those two vehicles. What seemed to be a little weird that Tesla did on their page was it seemed like they were comparing the base Model 3 to the P100D version of the Model S. One difference is in size. The Model 3 is about a foot shorter than the Model S, so of course it's going to have a little bit smaller storage space. And if you look at the two vehicles side by side, you can see that the front and the trunk area is where they took a lot of the space out of the Model 3 from the Model S. Don't know exactly how wide the Model 3 is, but that seems where it's probably going to be a little more narrow. I don't think it's going to be as drastic of a difference in length. The Model S has 30 cubic feet of storage space between the front and the trunk, and the Model 3 has 14 cubic feet of storage space. Now that's with the seats up, and in the trunk in the front. But when you fold the seats down in the Model 3, in the Model S, that storage space pretty much it doubles. And since the cabins are of more similar size, I think you can. You'll be pretty good with at least doubling the space in the Model 3. The 0 to 60 time they listed for the Model 3 was 5.6 seconds. But I don't know if that's the rear wheel drive larger battery version or the smaller battery base version rear wheel drive whenever it's available. But my understanding is the larger battery rear wheel drive only will be the first available Model 3 to launch. So they're either talking about the base model or they're talking about what's available first. But it seems as if they're talking about the base model. And if they are talking about the base model, then what's the 0 to 60 time for the larger battery rear-wheel drive Model 3? Because with the larger battery, we've come to expect a faster 0 to 60 time. Another thing that makes it a little confusing is with the range, they say it's 215 miles plus. So that should be the 60 and the 75 version of the Model 3. But what will the 75 be? Some people think it's going to be 300. I'm not nearly that optimistic. I think the 75D version of the Model S is about 250 miles, and I think the Model 3 is a little smaller. It'll be a little more slippery. It's going to be more efficient, so it should be able to get more range out of the same size battery, but I don't think it'll get 50 and get over 50 miles more range. That's a huge difference. I think the Model 3 is going to be in the 260 to 275 range with a 75 kilowatt hour battery. And the base model battery, which we know it'll be over 215 miles, will probably be a bit more, but it probably won't match the Bolt's 238. Probably not with a 60 kilowatt hour battery, because it will be a lot heavier than the model. It will be a lot heavier than the Bolt. Supercharging for the Model 3, it looks like it's going to be pay per use. There was no mention of a 400 kilowatts of free charging. There was no mention of the 1,000 miles free. There was no mention of free for day one reservation holders, and that will be something we'll learn in the future. Elon did say that there was going to be something special for the day one folks. The display for the Model 3, I think people are starting to get used to the idea of not having the binnacle or the heads-up display that everybody seemed to want, but it's going to be one 15-inch screen, touchscreen. It sits up really high, so it shouldn't be a problem losing the binnacle right in front of you. The delivery timing for the Model 3 is supposed to be over 1 year. For the Model S, you can get it in a month. That's a pretty big difference. And that a lot of that depends on what type of Model 3 you want, and something they haven't mentioned yet is it'll also depend on where you're located. The rear-wheel drive Model 3 is all that'll be available when it launches. And until now, we don't know when the smaller, cheaper $35,000 rear-wheel drive, smaller battery only version is going to come out. Toward the end of the year, that's when the all-wheel drive versions will come out. And supposedly early next year, the performance versions of the Model 3 will be coming out. But as everything stands, they're still on schedule for July production. And to look more into that, a couple months ago, Elon Musk was interviewed about how they wanted the production ramp up to go, and it's basically they want to do 1,000 a week in July, 2,000 a week in August, 4,000 a week in September, and they want to reach 5,000 a week by the end of the year. Now, if you add that up, I guess it depends on how you would think they would add it up, but I just did 1,000 for the whole month, and I gave them 5,000 for most of the month of December, and I got 86,000. So that would cover all their employees and probably a lot of the people who want rear-wheel drive. And this will be pretty much all American. And if they have 400,000 reservations, I think it's safe to assume that about 200 to 250,000 are in America. He's also said he believes that they can build 500,000 vehicles next year. Something else they put on there was the amount of configurations. It showed that the Model 3 will have less than 100 configurations. And a lot of people are really upset about that, and I don't really understand why. And I think people are getting like features and quality confused with customization. And 100 is a small number, but it's not when you consider, well, you can get a lot of options if everything's just packaged, and you just can't customize every little detail like you were able to do with the Model S a couple years ago. Even with the Model S, you can't really cherry pick the way you used to. Okay, as an example, for the Model 3, we've seen 5 colors so far, and if those are the only colors at launch, red, white, blue, black, and silver, and those will be your colors, there's only one battery option and one drivetrain. You have 2 roof options, and it shows you'll have 2 wheel options. And if I was to say that they will have four different choices you can choose from the interior, which is, I would say that's about what you get from any other automaker. Usually there's 1 or 2 nice fabric interiors and 1 or 2 leather interiors. Some of them will go more, because usually it's black, gray, and some of them have the tan. With all of those, that only gives you 80 configurations. And everybody can have 1 or 5 different color cars on the outside, and you can have 4 interiors on the inside. And I think that would make it easy for them to streamline, and I think that would give people a lot of good options so everyone doesn't have the exact same car. And that's also considering that there's no performance version yet. There's only 1 battery, and there's only the rear-wheel drive version available. Another thing that was in there is, of course, we'll have the full self-driving hardware ready to go. My question is, will it cost $8,000? I've said it before, I think $8,000 is a little steep on a $35,000 car, but they're the only people offering it, so they can almost charge whatever they want to for it. But if it's the same features as the Model S, I think the price should be the same. So it'll either be less than $8,000 and the price of the Model S can also go down, or it can just stay the same. Also, they mentioned the body of the Model 3 would be aluminum and steel, and I wanted to I wish I could know what the weight savings are in comparison to the cost savings. Okay, they also mentioned that it'll have the coil suspension. Elon Musk answered someone's tweet and said that the air suspension would be available, but probably not until the performance or all-wheel drive versions come out. Okay, for the Model 3, they mentioned that the glass roof would be optional. So even though all of the release candidates we've seen have had the glass roof, it's going to be an option. So the metal roof is probably going to be what the standard is. And there was no mention of a sunroof, so that might not be available for a while. And for the wheels, you have a choice between 18 and 19-inch wheels. This has been their normal thing for a while. You get two choices with wheels. The only difference is it's 18 and 19. There isn't really a big difference there. I can't see paying a whole lot more for a 1-inch bigger wheel. It's not going to look a whole lot different. Usually it's a 2-inch difference. With the Model S is 19 and 21, and the Model X is 20 and 22, I believe. But when the Moto Trend did the photo shoot, it was almost a year ago, I believe they measured it. I believe they got 20-inch wheels. So maybe when the performance versions come out, the 20-inch wheels will also be available. Maybe they decided that those are better with air suspension, and since that won't be available at launch, maybe that's what's going to happen with that. It'd also be interesting to see if they use the same 19-inch slipstreams with the Model 3 as with the Model S. Like, you can pay extra to get the base Model S wheels on your Model 3. But that's pretty much the Model 3 Model S comparison. Now let's talk about the Bolt. I don't think the Bolt and the Model 3 compare very well. I mean, I know they're all electric vehicles. They're under $40,000, and they both have 200+ mile range. But that's kind of where the comparison ends. But that's not the way we normally compare vehicles. We don't look at price and drivetrain and just compare only on those things. The main difference is the Bolt is obviously smaller. It's a crossover, and GM really isn't looking into production over 30,000 units a year. Now, I personally don't like the look of the Bolt, but it isn't a bad vehicle by any stretch of the imagination. It has some features that the Model 3 won't have. It has a really cool digital rear view mirror. But I think that's a buy-up. I think they have two levels, two trims, and you have to buy the higher one to get that feature. But it's a cool feature because I almost wish my Model S had that, because when I use the rear view camera, it's a little odd to look down to see what's behind you. But I think that the natural flow is to look up to your rear view mirror here. But I'm sure the Model 3 will also be able to use the backup camera, so that's something you'll probably be able to use, but I think it's a little more functional to have it where you're used to looking. Another thing I saw was the wireless charging console that they have for your wireless devices, and the Model 3 also has the bird's eye view camera, and you can get something close to that with the way the Autopilot 2.0 software is set up, but without having a camera on the front license plate area, you really can't get the full view around the car, but you can get really close. And the parking sensors do a really good job on their own. And there are obviously features that the Model 3 has there are obviously features that the Model 3 will have that the Bolt won't have, like Autopilot. And like I said earlier, it's something that Tesla is kind of doing right now, full self-driving hardware in the car right now that nobody else is doing, and they can almost charge whatever they want to for it. The Model 3s will have software updates, just like the Model S and X. Most automakers are pretty much done with the car after it leaves the lot. Tesla keeps making their cars better. The main difference the Model 3 will have is the supercharger network. And I don't think I could stress enough how big of an advantage that is. Because even if the Bolt has 238 miles and the Model 3 only has 220, first, that's not that big of a difference. And second, the range on the Bolt would have to be used in a different type of way. 215 miles on the Model 3 is just that's just how far away the next supercharger has to be for you to just continue on your road trip. On the Bolt, there really isn't a good means to take a road trip unless you have some access to fast charging. Like it's hard to imagine somewhere where you can take a normal road trip and still be able to afford a 4-hour stop to charge your vehicle and keep going. That would take forever. It's hard to convince a lot of people of the little 30-minute stops you have to take with the Model S. Yeah, so that's the difference between the range. With the Model 3, I feel like this is how far you can go away from a supercharger, but with the Bolt, it's almost like this is how far you can go from home. It's not really the type of vehicle that I believe replaces an internal combustion engine vehicle. I think you would still need that gas-powered vehicle if you're thinking about taking trips. Probably a great vehicle for going to and from work. With the Model 3, you will at some point be able to have more than one battery choice. So if 215, 220 is the minimum, then the larger battery will certainly have a longer range than the Bolt, and you still have the supercharger network. There goes my wife. She's acting crazy because she thinks she's in the video.
Hello, hello, Tesla, Tesla, hello, hello. Hey, hey, hey.